This is episode 2 of the Casey Lewis Show. This episode is going to be more of what this show is supposed to be about. We're going to talk about what Royals baseball looked like from the previous week. But first, I guess we can do some little housekeeping. I now realize that editing is kind of hard, and I apologize for the YouTube being posted several days after the Spotify as I tried to figure out how to edit. I'm also in grad school and work, so didn't have a whole lot of time in between. Time management is now a lot better, and I understand how much time is going to take to devoting to editing, and we will hopefully improve as the episodes come along. I have some ideas for what episode 2 edits are going to be a little bit different, but that's enough of that. Royals baseball finally happened. It's spring training, so there's only a couple of games since the last recording, from February 23rd to the 26th is how many games have been played from the episode 1's recording to episode 2's recording. So what do the Royals do in those 4 games of preseason? They went 3-1. That's right. Your Kansas City Royals started off spring training 3-1 after losing the first game. In those 4 games, they have scored 16 runs and allowed 9. Those 9 runs came through the first 2 games, which were against the Texas Rangers, and both of those games being played games 1 and 2, just due to the Rangers sharing the same facility as the Royals in Surprise, Arizona. So on Friday, the Rangers were the home team, and the Royals ended up losing 5-4. On Saturday, it was a 5-4 win for the Royals. Then on Sunday, they went and played the Angels and won 1-0. And on Monday, they won 6-0 against the Cubs. A lot of fun stuff. But let's break it down from every game. So, to start off our spring training adventure, Daniel Lynch was our starter. Only pitched an inning, and in that inning, only gave up a walk. So, not too bad. Jake Brentz, on the other hand, came in for relief and did not have an ideal start for how he would want to have his spring training start, only pitching 1/3 of an inning, giving up 1 hit, 3 earned runs on 4 walks. Did get a strikeout. I'm hoping that the Royals can continue to have good strikeout performances, as that was something that they were very lackluster in. Last year's rankings, they finished pretty far back. I understand that Kaufman is a very pitch to contact kind of field, and that's kind of how the Royals have been historically in the past, not really having a whole lot of strikeouts from the starters and relievers, but they're always welcomed adventures. But essentially, the Royals have historically kind of gone for pitchers that only pitch to contact and strike out second, and then from there, Penny Depoto pitched 2/3 of that inning to finish out for Brent. And then Long and Sauer came in, and both had strikeouts and gave up 1 walk apiece. And then Pennington was the other pitcher I had of note who gathered a couple strikeouts. And then the losing pitcher for game 1 was Barnett with 2 hits and the final earned run to give up the final winning run for the Rangers. Then we go to batting. And when it came to batting and pitching, I tried to highlight things that stuck out to me. As for reviewing it through video, it's not that easy. Spring training at least for the Royals, have always been hard to watch every single spring training game, and often you have to listen to it on the radio, which I have no problem with. But as for seeing what the players are doing, it gets a bit harder. Fangraphs doesn't keep track of preseason stats in the sense of what we did in-depth analysis of for MJ Melendez, Carlos Hernandez, Austin Cox, and Nick Lofton in episode 1. Those stats aren't available to us in spring training, so we are gonna kind of have to go a little bit more towards the basic stat lines to kind of see from a box score perspective and our analytics of what the team looks like. Unfortunately, Baseball Savant and Fangraphs just don't have the information, at least at the moment, for anything preseason related, and I don't anticipate it being much different. But that just means when we get to the regular season, we'll have a little bit more content, a little bit more number driven, of which I want to do. And that's what the whole premise of the show was supposed to be. It would be very analytical through the advanced numbers of baseball. Hard to be a show about analytic numbers when there are no analytic numbers being produced due to it being preseason. Also, one last other thing of housekeeping I would like to address. I am no longer sick. First episode sounded really rough and was dealing with some sinus issues. So it was a little rough sounding in episode 1. I've adjusted some audio things and no longer sick. So that always helps. But back to game 1. What did the batting look like? So I highlighted most of the starters that played from last year's roster or anything that kind of stuck out. Garrett Hampson led off. He went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts for his Royals debut. Not too great. Vinny Pasquantino did also have a start and did go 0 for 3. No strikeouts, no walks. Nelson Velasquez got the start, also went 0 for 3. Michael Massey did get a start too. Did go 1 for 2 and with a triple. So that's a good start for Michael Massey, as he was one I had concerns over his bat, and I think a lot of Royals fans also have that concern over his offensive production. We know his defensive production is there, and it will always be there. We saw those numbers pretty well in last episode. Nick Lofton also did play. He went 1 for 2 with an RBI, and that hit was a double. And Drew Waters went 1 for 2 with a home run, and also did strike out in that other plate appearance. And as for our analytics of the game, besides box score, MLB.com luckily gives us a win probability stat, percentage as a team for moments in the game that are going to swing one way or another for a team for their offensive or for their probability of winning that game. That information is still being calculated. So luckily we have some analytics to explore, but they're essentially just key moments. I'm just going to highlight the key moments that happened in each of these games, and will be kind of those swinging moments for the game. So at the top of the second in game 1, Drew Waters hit his solo home run. And then in the bottom of the second, former Royal Matt Duffy, now on the Texas Rangers, hit a single and also drove in a run. And then we go to the top of the fourth. Michael Massey did hit that triple, but was left on base, and nothing came of it. Derek Hill for the Rangers had a double and an RBI. And then we get to the top of the seventh for our next key moment, Diego Hernandez strikes out on a foul tip with a runner at first and bringing the Royals' win probability down. Then John Gray hit a single, and then the runner on first did end up scoring, so that brought the percentage back up. We go to the bottom of the seventh. Hernandez for the Rangers hit a triple, and then Dustin Harris hit a single and drove him in, giving the Rangers more of a lead. And then we go to the top of the eighth. Carter Jensen strikes out to end the inning with a runner on first. That was marked as a key moment for the Royals' winning percentage to go down. And then the top of the ninth, Ryan Fitzgerald strikes out with 2 out. And that was another key moment for the Royals, losing percentage of winning the game to go down. And those were our key moments of game one. And like I said, the Rangers won 5-4 because of it. We go to game two, and Alec Marsh gets the start. He goes 2 innings, gives up a hit, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Very similar to his time in the big leagues as well. Not a power strikeout guy, and gave up his fair share of walks. Viziano did 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. That's pretty cool. Our troubling one for the Royals in game 2 was everyone's mystery lefty that started out promising and has been interesting where he goes ever since, due to some injuries and up and down times on the roster, on the big league roster, spending time in Omaha, at AAA Omaha, to work on some things, and that is Angel Zerpa. He came in, pitched an inning, gave up 4 hits and 2 earned runs. And that was one that I highlighted because he is on the roster, and between him, between Zerpa and Jordan Lyles, and it's the battle for the 5th starter, at least to MLB's number people that post on social media. They say Lyles, Zerpa, battling it out for the number 5 starting spot. And to see him in his first appearance give up 4 hits and 2 earned runs later in the game, where your normal big league roster people are out of the game, is a bit concerning. But enough about pitching. Let's get back to our offensive side of things. Michael Garcia led off. He went 2 for 3, did have a strikeout. Bobby Witt got his first game in today, and that was Saturday. But this was game 2. Bobby Witt does go 0 for 3, and no strikeouts, no walks, but as always does put up a good defensive performance. Salvador Perez did get the start, went 0 for 3 with a strikeout, and then Adam Frazier, the offseason signing for the Royals, did get a start, went 0 for 2, did have a walk, and then 1 strikeout. MJ Melendez, our player to watch, went 1 for 3, did score a run, and that 1 hit was a double. Kyle Isbell, the starting center fielder for the Royals, went 1 for 2, did score a run, did have a walk. Dyron Blanco, which is an interesting one that has, and we'll see another performance by him, but going 1 for 3 with an RBI, did strike out. But Dyron Blanco making an argument, kind of what I was talking about. Maybe MJ Melendez could be in trouble for an outfield spot if Dyron Blanco continues to have a good spring training in the games that he's played so far. Granted, we are 4 games in, so there's a lot of things to be mindful of. We can't make any decisions. We still have another month before opening day. And then our last batter of note, Nick Prado, went 1 for 3, with a run scored. Didn't strike out. That's good for Nick Prado. It shows a little bit of off-season work, or just at least not in a position where getting in strikeout situations, but did go 1 for 3 with a run as scored. Didn't strike out for a guy who in the big leagues had a 40% strikeout rate. Pretty good to not strike out in your first game. But let's get to our key moment of game 2. We go to the bottom of the third where Salvador Perez has the bases loaded and he strikes out. Salvador Perez strikes out. Bottom of the third, bases loaded. We go to the next half inning, the top of the fourth. Dustin Harris also gets called out on strikes and ends the inning for the Rangers. Did have runners on second and first. We go to the bottom of the fourth. Michael Garcia strikes out on a foul tip with two outs, and the bases loaded. And bring it to 2 outs. And then Bobby Witt does reach on an error the next at bat, and Kyle Isbell and Nick Prado, the runners on base, 2 of the runners on base, do end up scoring. It gives the Royals a 2-0 lead. We go to the bottom of the fifth. Dairon Blanco hits his single. MJ Melendez is the runner that scores. KC then leads 3-0. We get to the bottom, the last third of the game. We go to the top of the sixth. Derek Hill for the Rangers singles. Elier Hernandez scores for the Rangers. Rangers get back within 2. 3 KC lead 3-1. Dustin Harris then grounds into a double play for the Rangers. The runner Hernandez does move up to third, and then Davis Wenzel singles, and the runner scores, bringing the Rangers within 1, leading. KC still leads 3-2. We get to the top of the seventh. Hernandez for the Royals singles, and the runner scores. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. The top of the seventh, Hernandez for the Rangers scores. The runner does score, and it is a tied game, 3-3. We get to the bottom of the seventh, where the Royals were the home team for this game. Peyton Wilson doubles, and a runner moves to third. River Town, that's a fun name, hits a double, and then hits a double. 2 runners score, trying to advance onto third for a triple. Does get called out at third base, and then the Royals, at the end of that play, lead 5-3. We get to the top of the eighth. The Rangers, looking to get those runs back, do not have an opportunity, as Aaron Zavala will cause the first out of the top of the eighth on a strikeout. There's a runner on first. Then Chavez for the Rangers does single. The runners move up to third and second. All said and done for the play. Then Fabin for the Rangers grounds into a double play, and the inning is over. Royals still lead 5-3. Going to the top of the eighth. Krim singles, and a runner scores, and then a runner advances to third. The Rangers are within 1. The lead still to the Royals, 5-4. Then Watley grounds into a double play, ends the game. The Royals win 5-4. Game 2, going to a 1-1 record. Heading into Sunday to play the Los Angeles Angels, we have Cole Reagans getting the start. And boy, howdy did he put on a show, showing why he is probably the opening day starter. And we're going to go to 2 innings pitched. Did give up 3 hits, but 5 strikeouts in those 2 innings. So, in context, one of the outs Cole Reagans pitched in those 2 innings was not a strikeout. He went 5 for 6 on outs being strikeouts. Good start for spring training for Cole Reagans. Nick Anderson, who did spend some time on the big league roster last year, had an inning pitch, did get a strikeout. Non-roster invite, Bolin had 2 innings pitched, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. Those were Sunday's pitchers of note. The Royals did end up winning 1-0, so no pitchers gave up a run. And let's get to the batters of Game 3 against the Angels. Of note, Garrett Hampson, once again the starter, did go 0 for 3 again with another strikeout. Vinny also went 0 for 3 again. No walks, no strikeouts for Vinny. Nelson Velasquez, same thing, 0 for 3. No walks, no strikeouts, no runs. Nothing of that since. Drew Waters did play, went 1 for 2, did have another strikeout. Nick Lofton played and went 0 for 2. And then the one run of the game came from Freddie Fermin, who went 0 for 1 with a run scored and a walk and a strikeout. And is the only score that came was from Freddie Fermin. As we'll get to our key moments. And our first key moment is a wild pitch by the Angels where it causes Freddie Fermin to score. And that was in the top of the 5th. We go to the bottom of the 7th where the Angels are batting. Wagman for the Angels grounds out. The runner does try to advance to third, gets called out, and ends the inning. And then we're going to do a one for one on the outs here for the bottom of the 9th. Angels is looking to score, get on base, get something going. Placiana for the Angels leads it off with a walk. Then Caleb Hamilton flies out for the first out. Sonny DiChiero singles. There are now runners on second and first. Then Adriana grounds into a force out. The runner at second is out, and then Ruiz flies out, and that is the ball game. Royals win 1-0 on a wild pitch scored for Freddie Fermin. And then we get to our last game to recap. The Royals take on the Chicago Cubs. Seth Lugo, the starter, another big offseason acquisition for the Royals. Probably the biggest name and the most money thrown at the pitching concerns. Seth Lugo's first start for the Royals. 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Not bad. Duffy for the Royals then pitches an inning, gives up 2 hits, doesn't give up a run, so that's positive. Was able to get runners on base and keep them from scoring, something that the Royals could probably continue to monitor in those situations and maybe find a pitcher of note. Then Sessa comes in, pitches 2 innings, gives up 2 hits, does get another strikeout. Same thing with Duffy, gets a strikeout there. And then the closer of last year, who ended the year on a 16-inning consecutive scoreless streak, MacArthur, came in, pitched an inning, gave up a walk, gave up a hit, didn't surrender anything. Pennington also came in for an inning, gave up no runs, no hits, no walks, but 3 strikeouts. A 1-2-3 inning, all Ks. Pennington starting to look like he's going to have a pretty good start to spring training. Let's take a look at our batters of note. MJ Melendez did play, went 1 for 2, had a walk. Bobby Witt Jr. did play again, did go 0 for 3. Michael Massey, 1 for 2, and a run scored. Nick Pratto went 1 for 2, a run scored himself, 3 RBIs because he had a 3-run home run in the bottom of the first. Austin Nola had finally joined the big league roster after being signed on Saturday, I believe, on Game 2. Austin Nola had been released by the Brewers because they had signed Gary Sanchez. So Austin Ola was picked up by the Royals, had some big league experience with the Padres, was not where he wishes to have been performance wise with the Padres, and that was just due to a missed concussion like symptoms. They had a hard time just kind of seeing and standing, very vertigo like symptoms that did not go reported until very end part of the year. And as a result, Austin Nola was playing similar to Anthony Rizzo last year, concussion like symptoms without really getting reported. But he went 1 for 3 and did score a run in his Royals debut. We'll see if he can battle for a spot on the big league roster as a catcher. We'll see how Fangraphs will update their percentages for starters and playing time with Austin Nola now on the roster, where I still think that Freddie Fermin will get a majority of the starts, and this is where I disagree with Fangraphs, who had Salvador Perez as projected to be consistently the starter. I have concerns. I mentioned the Baseball Savant percentile rankings without really clarifying those in episode 1, but then did give the graphic in the video as part of the edit where it showed that Salvador Perez was in the lower third. He was around 30th percentile of catching numbers, so that was concerning to see. But then also just watching the games at times, he just had a very slow reaction time to things, and it's hard for a catcher to keep going. He is a workhorse. He will be the first to tell you that Salvi does not want to sit out if he doesn't have to. He wants to play, and you appreciate that in a ball player, but also at the same time, he has to ask, like, maybe it's time for a DH. Maybe, we played a couple games at first base. I remember I was at one of the games that he played first base, and he looked pretty all right. But that would cause more of a logjam at first base. We already have enough first basemen on the roster between Vinny, Pasquantino, Nick Prado, Nick Lofton. So for first base, probably established well enough. Adam Frazier can play first. Garrett Hampson can play first. So moving Salvador Perez to first would cause another logjam. You're going to play Nelson Velasquez, who hit 11 home runs in 30 games for the Royals, and you'll be very interested to see if that continues or if it's going to be kind of like a Jorge Soler situation where had a lot of power and just the Royals couldn't continuously and regularly take advantage of that natural power. But we need to talk about one last batter for Game 4, and that was Dyron Blanco. He went 1 for 2, had a run scored, and that one hit was a double. So Dyron Blanco getting a hit in both the games that he played this week in this week's recap. Let's go to our key moments for Game 4 against the Cubs on Monday. In the bottom of the first, Nick Prado homers. He has a 3-run home run. Michael Massey and Nola are the other runners to score besides Prado. It was on a 3-2 count with 2 out. Top of the second, the Cubs are up to bat. They got a runner on third, and Master Boney, that is a real name, not just, it's a very funny name. Master Boney grounds into a double play, 2 outs, and there's a runner on third, all said and done. We get to the bottom of the 7th. Ryan Fitzgerald hits the triple for the Royals, and that's the last of the key moments for Game 4. And the Royals will go to 3-1 at the time of this recording. Later today, they are to play 2 games in a split squad against the Mariners and the Padres. But that will be episode 3 recap, not today's, because I can't know the future. And so that's Royals recapping for the week. Would be a fairly short episode if there wasn't some news to talk about involving the Royals. Not current players, but now a former player, as Eric Hosmer has finally decided to call it a career after 13 years. Eric Hosmer played from 2011 to 2023. He was a first round pick, 3rd overall in 2008 for the Royals out of American Heritage High School in Florida. Let's take a look at some of those numbers. As we all remember Hosmer so fondly as Royals fans. Padres fans, they probably don't remember him as so nicely as the Royals do. Eric Hosmer had a 18.6 WAR, 1,753 hits, 198 home runs, a career .276 average, and 893 RBIs for a career. Was part of the 2010 Futures game, was a one-time All-Star, was part of the 2015 Royals team that won the World Series and had a very pivotal moment in that World Series to seal it in Game 5 as he stole home against he stole home and caused his eventual replacement Lucas Duda to make a wild throw to home, doesn't make that play, and Hosmer scores on a steal from home. It becomes a very iconic moment in World Series history and especially in Royals history. Hosmer is also a 4-time Gold Glove winner, did win a Silver Slugger, and in that one All-Star start and appearance, did get the MVP. Sounds like a very productive career. Will he make it into the Hall of Fame? No. He'll probably make it into the Royals Hall of Fame, and I will clarify a little bit of that later. But looking at our Hall of Fame stat projectors, JAWS, he ranks 139th in all of first basemen to have played baseball. He is 139th in the JAW number. But the Hall of Fame voters sometimes don't always oblige by the in-depth analysis, as Billy Wagner is yet to get into the Hall of Fame. Check out Foolish Baseball for a more in-depth video about why Billy Wagner should be in the Hall of Fame. Hosmer ended his career 8th in active player hits at the time. And let's break down his career. So he played in Kansas City from 2011 to 2017. 2016 was the All-Star appearance, and in those years was Kansas City. Played in 1,048 games, had 4,393 plate appearances, 574 runs scored, 1,132 hits, 127 RBIs, 566 RBIs, 127 home runs. Did finish with a 111 OPS plus, so that's a pretty cool stat. We know that in his time collectively as a Royal, he was 11 points above an average hitter, so he was a very above average hitter. Did finish his time in Kansas City with a 15.4 WAR. And then in the 2017 offseason, signed with the Padres and played with the Padres from 2018 to 2022. Was traded to the Red Sox in 2022 as well. In his time with the Padres, he played in 596 games, had 2,434 plate appearances, scored 252 runs, 588 hits, 309 RBIs, had a 103 OPS plus, So a little bit, 3 points above average. Had a 3.7 WAR. It was still productive for the Padres, but for the amount of money that they paid for the Padres, Padres fans would not agree with you. But did make a stop in Boston in 2022, and in those 14 games before getting released, had 50 plate appearances, hit 244, and a 77 OPS plus. And then in 2023, did make the Cubs roster, had 31 games played, 100 plate appearances, 7 runs, and a 64 OPS plus before being released by the Cubs as well, and then was not picked up by another team, and at the start of spring training decided to retire. So why do I think that he will get into the Royals Hall of Fame when it's all said and done? Because he ranks 11th in all-time Royals history for hits, and is also 11th all-time with career home runs, tying Billy Butler, who was, you know, the power hitter of the team, if you will, before leaving after 2014 to go to the A's, and that was an interesting endeavor for Billy Butler. But this segment is not about Billy Butler. It is about Eric Hosmer. So 11th in hits and home runs in Royals history, 12th in games played, 18th in Royals history in WAR, and what brings that number down as much as it does is a baffling number to me. If you ask any Royals fan, you'll remember him for being a very defensive first baseman. Hosmer was making a lot of plays, bailed out Moustakas and Escobar over on the other side of the infield on their wild throws. But Hosmer had a negative 6.7 defensive WAR, which breaks down WAR in the sub factor of the defensive stats that take into all considerations to help calculate WAR as a collective number. Breaks it down. WAR gets broken down into offensive and defensive numbers for position players, and had a negative 6.7 defensive WAR across his career. But he has 4 gold gloves, which is an argument to be made that the gold glove is just a popularity contest, and shows that it's not as much as it is for defensive analytic rating. Is just more of highlights, and that shows as Hosmer won 4 gold gloves but has a negative 6.7 career WAR. But I will then make the argument that it doesn't really matter because Derek Jeter is known as this guru of a defensive shortstop. He had a negative 9.4 defensive WAR rating. Was just not a very good defender when you looked at the numbers, but it didn't matter because the Yankees, and he made jumping throws. You know, he played for the Yankees, and they get a lot of publicity. He makes the jumping throw once or twice a year, so therefore he was a great defensive shortstop. In reality, no, Derek Jeter was not a very good defensive shortstop. And evidently, the same is said for Eric Hosmer. He is a negative defensive WAR player. And then our last stat to talk about with Eric Hosmer is he was 9th in Royals history in RBIs. So consistently not top 10 in considerable stats, but has some iconic moments in Royals history outside of the World Series play. He's just remembered well. It gets a little iffy at the end there. He kind of was just very mixed response on when Hosmer left from the Royals on how fans feel about it. But we also felt that way about Zach Greinke leaving. But then he came back last year in 2023, and we welcomed him with open arms. So time does heal some wounds. I know that Robinson Cano probably would still get some boos for his decision to not include Billy Butler into the home run derby that was in Kauffman Stadium after it was renovated in 2012. I know he got several boos many years after that until the end of his career. Anytime he was in Kauffman, there were people that remembered Robinson Cano and gave him boos, but he never played for the Royals. So we'll never know how his response would have been. I know Whit Merrifield, when he first came back to the Royals, had a warm welcome, and Hosmer did get some standing ovations when he played with the Red Sox in 2022 and made it to Kauffman Stadium. So he was welcomed back in his time on other teams, and it was never a bad, like, he never badmouthed the team. It's just due to things that are kind of happening. Ned Yost had his accident out in the woods, and allegedly Hosmer didn't even reach out in that offseason to check in on Ned. So, and that left a kind of a taste in Royals fans' mouths for a while. But overall, I would say a lot of fans are going to agree with me on this, that Eric Hosmer will be recognized very highly in Royals history, and in a couple of years when it's time for him to go into the ballot on the Royals Hall of Fame, he will probably make it in. I don't see how he won't. As when Moustakas is done, all said and done, his career, he's on a big league. He was on a minor league roster invite with the White Sox this spring training, so he's still trying to continue to play, and we'll see how many more years Moustakas will continue to play. Hosmer decided it was time to hang it up, get into the next adventure of his life, which is what I'm doing. He's doing a podcast. So, what Hosmer has decided, and he can, in his own episode, in his own words, explain his decision to retire with 34. So he still had, if the average athlete retires at 40, he still had a couple more years in him. But at the same time, how much more his offensive numbers were in a decline after leaving the Padres, and even at the end of the time with the Padres. But Hosmer as a Royal, we thank you, and we will remember the memories of your iconic steal and great defense. Despite the numbers telling us otherwise, we will remember those 4 gold gloves and remember your defensive contributions. And with that, this has been episode 2 of the KC Lewis Show. I've been your host, KC Lewis, and we'll see you again next week.